Okay, cool. So I'm here to talk about how product managers can lead by connecting the why, the how, and the what. So briefly about me, I'm Nils. I'm the author of Epic Alignment, the book. I'm the founder of Delibr, a startup that helps product managers. I was 8 years on the board of directors at Storytel. Before that, I was 6 years as a consultant at McKinsey, and I have a background in engineering before that. So what will be covered in this talk? First, the complexities of product management and how that makes the PM job super hard. And then second, how PMs can overcome this and avoid being pulled into being a feature factory by beginning with why, moving on to how, and then getting to the nitty-gritty of what. Okay, let's dive in. So the responsibilities of the product manager stretches across the product development process. So from strategy to prioritization and back and forth with discovery, refinement, development, and then iteration, optimization all the way around. Several steps that iterates, and all the features need to go through all of them. So it's a quite intense process. And across this process, there are a number of different artifacts that the product manager can work with. To mention a few, you have the business model canvas on the strategy side, you have the roadmap, opportunity trees, and then you dive down to the discovery. There's interview notes, lots of different experiments and wireframes and discovery techniques. And then you go on to do user story mapping, feature documents, acceptance criteria, a lot of tickets for the developers, but you also need to keep track of all the stuff that's coming in from iteration, like customer requests and analysis and so forth. So a lot of different artifacts that you need to work with. And then on top of this, there's a lot of different tools that you need to work with across this. And so having to update and copy paste across all of these different tools can be both tedious and time consuming. And not only that, because as you work with this, you're not working alone. You have to work with different team members and stakeholders to keep them aligned. And that means that you need to, across all these artifacts, across all these different tools, to keep people involved at the right timing, to get the proper input and the proper feedback and make sure everybody is heard. And if you then take a whole view of this and just putting all the layers on top of each other, just this image in itself, it's messy. You can really tell the PM job is hard. It's no wonder that a lot of product managers just try to survive and scramble on and deliver the features that they have to deliver. And so it's so little time left. So that's what I would like to focus on next. How to step out of all this mess and actually lead. So there's a great framework by Simon Sinek called the why, the how, and the what. He calls it the golden circle. And the idea is that by beginning with the why, the story and the goal that you're really trying to accomplish, and then widening out broadly how you're going to do it before you dive into the actual what's and nuts and bolts and tasks and to-dos and all that stuff, you can really elevate yourself, and it gives you a much better focus and momentum, and it's also much easier to bring other people along. And so with this as a starting point, a new take on what the job of a PM is the job of a product manager is to work with a team to connect the how, the why, the how, and the what. So I'll dive in a little bit what this could mean. So if we first take the why, the how, and the what and put it on the product management process that we looked at, the why, it's basically the strategy. You need to know why you're doing things. Then it's all about diving into understanding how you can actually achieve the goals that the company has by helping customers. And to do this, you need to talk to a lot of customers, figure out what they want, test it with them, make sure it actually helps them, figure out what's doable, what's not doable, work with the engineers, and also link back with the rest to really do the proper discovery. And then going into the what, okay, based on all of this, what are we then going to do? This is a very high level. Now let's dive in a little bit more. So the first thing you really must do as a product manager is to begin with why. If you're ever going to be anything else than an order taker that receives, do this feature, do this feature, do this feature, you need to be able to elevate yourself to the strategic level. Begin with why and clearly articulate the sought business impact that you're going for. And here there are a bunch of easy ways to do it, that kind of nice shortcuts. You can use artifacts to align on strategic context. You can probably, your company already have things like mission, vision, maybe you have business model, canvas, value proposition. If you don't, it's great opportunity for you as a product manager to do these things and then lift it and discuss it with your executive stakeholders or your managers to make sure that you think the same way about the strategic context. Then if you have that clear, that's great. Then the next thing is to think about, okay, but how is management thinking about impact? You should think, there's a saying that's great, it's always think of yourself as one step above your current pay grade. So what does management think? Maybe they're using pirate metrics, the awareness, acquisition, and so forth. Or maybe they have a different set of goals, but it's important for you to know how they are thinking about that so you can link up to that. And then it's time to define your own impact clearly. If your company uses OKRs, that's great, then you have a lot for free. Then it's just to link up and be really involved in the OKR process. If they don't, you still need to talk to your manager and say, okay, so this is the goals that you're trying to accomplish. What part of that should I focus on? And then really make an agreement with that. And then just a last note on this, beginning with why and aligning, is that you need to master upward management as a product manager. And the litmus test for good upward management is that nobody should be surprised. Nobody that's important to your process should be surprised about what you're doing. So align, and make sure people know what you're doing and they agree. Okay, cool. So the first thing to do, articulate this business impact and make sure you have alignment on that. It's really, really important, but actually doesn't need to take that much time. However, then when that's done, you need to focus your time on the how. Really dive in and understand your customer. What are their problems and how could you solve those problems? There's another great book by Teresa Torres. I recommend it if you haven't read it. So this is just a couple of points, but they're really, really important. So the first one is to get close to your customers, interview them, but don't do it alone. This is important. Bring along the team. So you bring along a tech lead or a developer, bring along a designer, and talk to customers at least every week. Make room for this. It will take time, but it's absolutely crucial for you to do that. Then when you have these interviews, really go in and codify your understanding. Create experience maps. What are the steps the customers go through? How are they working with things? In each step, what are the problems? What are the sub-problems? Do these opportunity trees to kind of map it out. And then when you start to get an idea of what the problems of the customers are, go ahead with generating a bunch of solutions. Don't settle for one solution. This seems like a good one, but go crazy. One of my favorite methods is design studio. Is you bring everybody together, ideally stakeholders as well, definitely designer and the developer and yourself. You all write a quick solution on paper. You fold the paper and write some solutions, and then you take everybody's solution together. You think, oh, now we have 20 different solutions. Which ones are the good ones? How can we combine them and get a really good one? Okay, and then you have good solutions or ideas for good solutions, but then you look at them like, what are the assumptions that we made now? And then you test those to make sure that the solution you're going for, it actually solves the problem. It's valuable for customers. You need to test that the way you did it, that they could actually use it, that it's usable. You need to test it with engineers. Like if we do it like this, is this going to be easy to do? Is it going to be hard? What are the problems going to be? Feasibility. And then also linking back all the way to why, saying if we do it this way, sure, it might help the customer, but does it link back to our business goals? To the business viability, to test assumptions around that as well. Okay, that's the how. So begin with why, then focus your time on how to really drill down. The next one is to embrace user stories as a shared language. It's an almost magical ability that developers, they talk about tickets and tasks. Designers, they talk about maybe a wireframe or something like this. Executive stakeholders, maybe they just talk about the bottom line, and the marketing, they maybe talk about the campaign. So it's really hard to map out these different perspectives. But the cool thing with user stories is that everybody can relate to something being useful for a user. So user stories really leverage that. And then when you have that format in mind, go ahead and bring everybody in and do joint user story mapping. to tell the story. Why, how, what are they trying to do? What are the steps? How do they do it? And what are we going to do to help them achieve this? User story mapping is also a great book by Jeff Patton that I recommend if you haven't read it. Okay, so now you have this map of all the user stories that you have sorted on. These are the ones we need to do first, then we can do these ones, and then we can do these ones, maybe later, maybe never, but at least we need to do this first. Then you need to drill down on these stories that you're going ahead with. I love the framework card, conversation, confirmation, the 3 C's. The idea is that the story was originally written on an index card. Like you see here on the screenshot, it's just a short, like maybe you do the as a user, I can so that, or maybe you just write that they want to do this. And then you have a conversation about this user story. Here you involve the team, you involve everybody. And the end goal is that you have a confirmation, like you have a set of criteria to say, have we fulfilled this user story? It's typically acceptance criteria and reference designs. But all of this conversation, it's important. So it's good to capture that as you move along. And for doing that, not to lose that information and to make sure that everybody can get a good view, it's really good to try to figure out using a single source of truth to create this shared understanding. And so here, what we have seen work really, really well is to use epic documents that live across the stages. So when I wrote my book, this was the focus of my book, these documents, and we interviewed over 300 product managers for this work. And one of the things we saw was that the really successful ones, they had these documents that could kind of live across the process. So very early on, when you start to formulate a almost like a high level user story or an epic, like we need to solve this. Maybe we need to have comment functionality. We need to have mention functionality. We need to allow people to sign up with Google Docs, Google accounts, or whatever. Then very early on, you create this stub document based on a template, and then you let that document live. And then that document can live on a roadmap. You can link in the design files that you like. You can link it up with Jira, and you can either put the information that otherwise would be in other documents or link to other documents. So that's really the hub for this feature. So everybody knows this is the single source of truth. And then one thing to make it really useful is to use a template that can anticipate the topics that you will face. So in the lower end, you have an example template. And so basically, it's great to have it at the epic level. It's great to have user story focus. So you get all the juicy bits that we talked about from user stories, and you put it in here, and the relevant parts that it's good to have along, you chuck it in there. And the next one is that it's really good if you have this to structure them for stakeholder readability. And what do I mean by this? Well, basically that the stakeholders, they come in, so you should answer the why of this epic very early on, and then you should come to the how about the user stories, and then they drill down into the what deeper into the structure. And then a trick, at this point, you're probably thinking, oh, these documents could become really big. And that is a common problem for product managers that they get these documents and they're really big. A trick for you to avoid this problem is to use an outliner. An outliner is basically a type of document writing tool where the document is a tree. So you can restructure it and work with a tree, and then it's also like a document. But the cool thing is that you can then add the details further down in the tree and then collapse. And then you can have all the details there, but you don't need to be overwhelmed by them because you don't see it unless you need it. So that's a really good way for you to move ahead with that. Okay, then the next one is, so now you have started with why, you did all your research, you have a discussion with user stories, and you come down and you have a document that encapsulates each epic very clearly. Now, prioritization is one of the most important things that product managers do. And this is all the pre-work that you did to be able to do the right prioritization. And so when you do prioritization, it's two main things to be really aware of. The first one is to use your knowledge to really combine these different perspectives, to go for impact and outcomes for the customer when you prioritize features. So you need to know how big is a feature and how much will it benefit the customers and the business. And do that analysis for the different features that you could potentially build, and also for each feature, different versions of that feature to slice it down. Like how much less good would this feature be if we take this part of it out? Maybe not that much. So so one of the most important things is to slice features and make them in smaller versions to begin with. And then this is really important way to think. And then the other one is to use different methods and triangulate across. So there are a bunch of good frameworks. RISE is great. Opportunity trees are great. User story maps we talked about. And then it's also great to do team scoring, bringing in the team and stakeholders and let them kind of rate and have a perspective. Of course, that's great that you bring in the stakeholders, the designers, the engineers, to let them get their perspective in. And then also that when you do this prioritization, to have all the data that you worked with at your fingertips. So the surveys, maybe interview notes, customer requests about this feature, maybe some conversion data or feature adoption data that you want to have in there. Get it all there and have a good set of different perspectives that you can use when you make prioritization. Okay. Now recap of what we talked about today. So first, we talked about the complexities of product management and how it makes the PM job a really hard one. Then we talked about how product managers can lead and overcome these complexities, avoid being this feature factory, but really lead and make great products that help customers and help the business they're working with. And they can do this by beginning with why, deep diving on the how, and then translating that into the what. Yes. Now, shameless plug, of course. This presentation was partly based on the book that I wrote, Epic Alignment. It was based on more than 300 interviews. It's really deep. I got the foreword by Jeff Patton that I'm super excited about, the author of the user story mapping. I recommend you to read it. Second shameless plug, Delibr, the company that I founded and work on, we work to help product managers with these topics we covered. So we help product teams connect the why, the how, and the what. And specifically, we help product teams use the latest product thinking with helping them with a bunch of templates to get these methods easier to work with. Second, of course, Delibr is an outliner. So it allows you to take all the information that you get bombarded with, structure it, have documents that are really structured and can have a lot of information, but still be really easy to work with, and then linked up together with links and backlinks and boards and collections, so you can really stay on top of all this information. And then, of course, it's important to connect to the other tools you're using. So we integrate with Figma, Miro, Slack, all the stuff you want. The documents live on a roadmap board, so it's very easy for you to have the whole flow. And last but not least, we have a deep integration with Jira that allows you to work with the document as the single source of truth and have all the information you want from the document show up in Jira, so the developer can just pick it up and work, and you don't have to worry about copy pasting back and forth. And of course, it's a live tool, so you can work everybody in the same document to collaborate. And we have great features for structured decision making and so forth. Okay, that was the shameless plug at the end. Now I want to thank you. Please do connect with me on LinkedIn, get the book, try out Delibr to help your team connect why, how, what. And also, please do discuss product management practices with me. We help a lot of our customers with free coaching to really get them into this. Yeah. And now I'm checking my own timer here. I actually have 11 minutes left. So yeah.
Perfect timing. Perfect timing, Nils. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience, your knowledge, and your wisdom. Okay. In this area of expertise. So actually we had one question from the chat, and it was from Sasha Brossman. According to him, important component is missing. Who? Do you think, do you have anything to comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. No. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And I think when you do for example, the strategy work and the discovery work, it's super important to link that up with personas and so forth. And so, I absolutely agree. It's super important to figure out who it is you're solving all this for. I mean, I think when you answer the why and the how in this way, I think you also cover the who. So yeah, in no way I'm disagreeing with the who. I think the reason that Simon Sinek didn't include this is because it's not the framework originally for product managers.
All right. Okay, guys, dear audience, is anyone ready do you have any questions? Are you ready for discussion? So please raise your hand, unmute, and talk to Nils. Well, if you're not, I also have some questions. Well,
okay.
Basically, I have a lot.
Great.
You've already told us about your book, and how long did it take you to figure out that strategy? I mean, how much time did you need to figure out this strategy, how to implement and all those documents, and how to put it all in one picture all together?
That's a good question. I don't exactly know the answer to that, because I think I wrote the book itself for during about 1 year. But before that, we worked a lot with interviewing so many product managers also for our own discovery work. And so probably I would say it's the culmination of maybe 3 years of close collaboration and interviewing and thinking, and of course a lot of reading.
And most probably your previous experience, of course, added to that.
Yeah, even that, exactly.
Okay, and well, what mistakes have given you the biggest lesson that you can share with us? Like, were there any on the way? Most probably there were.
Yeah, so many mistakes. So in the very, very early beginning, I mean, many years ago, that when I first started out, we did it all the wrong way. I mean, then I started out being an engineer's engineer, building a product way before we had the market validation. I think if there's something I would do differently now, it's that I would start out doing a lot more discovery work and interviews before even doing the first line of code. I think that's what was a really big learning for me. And of course, if you have a developer background, you're eager to just get coding, but to kind of, if you have that background, to really hold back on that before you really have had a large number of interviews and checked things out. That's one thing, I think. Another one, I think, is another mistake, I think, is to start out. This is almost counterintuitive, but to start out with just talking to people without also doing the market research. I think it's also super good. I think a lot of product managers, they do very much of the how, which is deeply just talking to users and so forth. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can get business value from it. So it's also good to do all the strategic work ahead and do tests on what will people become excited about and click on if you make test advertisement and stuff like that. To as a product manager, to also acknowledge that it will always be a part of your work that is product marketing as well. Those are two things I think people underestimate.
Oh yes, so there is like the main work is going on basically behind the scenes, even before the product is like, before the coding line, just like you said.
Yes.
So it's like an iceberg, right?
Yes.
The massive part is hidden. I'm just using, I'm not from the product manager, so I'm trying to use the metaphors, okay? So, and I have a couple of more questions. What's the biggest risk you've ever taken in product management? Were there any?
No, I think, I actually think that, no, I think there's a lot of risks that are not good that I've taken. I mentioned a couple of them, but I think the biggest risk in a way was starting the company at all. That was a good risk, saying that somewhere around here is something that's really needed, and to go ahead and really do it. Another one I think is when you are moving along with a product that is it adds value, but to really do a pivot, I think that's it's valuable to do it and not be too afraid, even if it's a soft pivot, to say, what if we would turn everything around a little bit? That I think is another one that's really, really valuable.
Okay, and I have one more, but we have the members of this chat. We have one from the member of the chat. He's asking about the where. So we talked about why, what, how, who, even who, we mentioned who, and what about where? So this is how I interpret that. Mm-hmm. What about where?
I mean, I think just listing the words themselves is it's not clear. I don't exactly understand the question. Is it where are you going to sell it, or where are the users going to use it? Or, I mean, yeah.
We can ask Joshua to come up on stage, and you can personally ask the question, because we want to make sure that we understood it correctly before we answer that. Joshua, I can't see you. Oh yes, hello.
Hi, Joshua.
Yes. So you had mentioned about the why, the what, and the how. And someone had asked a question about the who, but I wanted to ask a follow-up question about the where, because about the product development, you had shortened it with the how, the why, the what. Then someone asked about the who, and I added to say about the where.
Yeah, exactly. And then my question would be what does that mean? I mean, it could mean a lot of different things, like where the where is part of a sentence. So maybe it's where will you deploy the product? What channels? Where will you reach your customers? That's valuable. That's one potential thing. Where will the customer use it? Is that how you're thinking, or is it more in general?
Yes. That is exactly the where. Where is the product going to go? So is the where it's going to be deployed? Is that also important in your in the book of Epic alignment for your product development?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the way that I structured this talk, you have the why, the how, and the what. I think the how and the where, they are also, you can add them in the same steps. I mean, when you think about strategy, you need to think about where you're going to deploy it. If you think about doing product discovery, you need to think about where the customers are going to use the product. So I absolutely think it's included, and I agree that having the why, the how, and the what is a little bit of a simplification. So take it less literally and more as a rhetorical device, I would say.
Thank you. Thank you so much.